Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Before I begin, I'd just like to say that this video is not meant for beginners because I will be going kind of fast and you will need to know the basics of stitching. I did do my best trying to explain how I sewed everything on, but I feel like how I explained it is a little confusing, so I feel like it would be better if you already knew how to sew things on. But anyway, this week we are going to be making this panda pillow. The materials you need are going to be white and black yarn, a darning needle, and some scissors, and that's about it. And the hook size that I used is a 3.75mm crochet hook. Now that's all out of the way, you can grab your tea, a cozy blanket, and let's begin. To start off our panda pillow, we're going to make a magic ring, also known as a slip knot. So grab the end of your yarn and your two fingers, and you're going to wrap the yarn around your fingers like so. So you have this little cross formation. Now you're going to insert your hook through the front loop. You're going to grab the yarn in the back and you're going to pull it up. You have a loop on your hook, you're going to grab yarn and pull through to chain one. If that was too quick, then I will link a tutorial on how to do a magic ring in the description box below. But for now, we're going to start. So to start off, we're going to make 6 single crochets into this ring. So insert your hook, grab yarn, pull up. You have two loops on your hook. You're going to grab yarn and pull through 2 to make a single crochet. Continue single crocheting until you have a total of 6. And there's 4, 5, and 6. I have a total of 6 single crochets, and now what you're going to do is you're going to grab this little end of yarn that you have and pull on it. When you pull on it, the center loop should tighten. And now what you want to do is you want to slip stitch into your very first stitch. To find your very first stitch, you can count backwards, or you can just find the very first one that you've done. I like to count backwards, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Insert your hook through the 6th stitch, grab yarn, and pull through to make a slip stitch. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're doing round 2. For round 2, we're going to increase in each and every stitch. So for round 1, we had a total of 6. For round 2, we should have a total of 12. So you're going to make 2 single crochets in each stitch all the way around for a total of 12, and I'll meet you when I'm done. I have a total of 12 stitches, and now you can count backwards to find your first stitch, and then slip stitch into your very first stitch, and chain 1. Now we're on to round 3. For round 3, we're going to start off by doing 1 single crochet in the very first stitch. And then in the second stitch, we're going to do an increase. So we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So a repeat pattern for round 3 is to do 1 single crochet in the next available stitch, and then an increase. So continue repeating 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. At the end, you should have a total of 18 stitches. I'm here at the end of round 3 and I have a total of 18 stitches. Now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. Now we're going to work on round 4. Let me just zoom in real quick. There we go. And for round 4, we're going to start off by doing 2 regular single crochets. So single crochet in the first stitch, and single crochet in the second stitch, and then in the third stitch we're going to do an increase. So again, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And so a repeat pattern for round 4 is to do 2 single crochets and then an increase until you get to the very end. Once you're done, you should have a total of 24 stitches. I've just done my 24 stitches, and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're working on round 4. We're working on round 5. To start off round 5, we're going to do 3 regular single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to do an increase. So a repeat for round 5 is to do 3 single crochets and then an increase all the way around. At the end, you should have a total of 30 stitches. I've just finished round 5 and I'm done with my 30 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch into my very first single crochet and chain 1. And now we're working on round 6. For round 6, we're going to start off by doing 4 regular single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then into our 5th, we're going to increase. So the repeat for round 6 is to do 4 single crochets and then an increase all the way around until you get to the very end. You should have a total of 36 stitches. I've just finished round 6 and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're on to round 7. For round 7, we're going to start off by doing 5 single crochets. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to do an increase into our 6th stitch. So the repeat for this round is to do 5 single crochets and then an increase until you get to the very end. You should have a total of 42 stitches. I've just finished round 7 and I have a total of 42 stitches, and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're on to round 8. For round 8, we're going to start off by doing 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to do an increase. Oops. So our repeat for round 8 is to do 6 single crochets and then an increase all the way around until you get to the very end. And at the end, you should have a total of 48 stitches. I've just finished my 48 stitches and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. And now for rounds 9 and 10, you're just going to continuously do single crochets all the way around, keeping a stitch count of 48. So do 2 rounds of single crochets, and I will meet you when I'm done. I've done my 2 rounds of single crochets. Now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to snip a small strand of yarn. And then pull it through and pull tight. And now what you want to do is you want to make another piece like this, so exactly the same. You can rewind the video and watch it and basically just redo this. Sorry about that, but you can rewatch the video so you can make another piece because you're going to be needing a piece that's exactly like this, and you can go ahead and make that piece and I will meet you when I'm done. I've just finished both pieces of my panda, and now we're going to put those to the slide and we're going to grab our black yarn. And now we're going to be working on the ears. So we're going to start off once again with an adjustable loop. And you're going to start off with a chain 1. And now into this loop, we're going to do 4 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let me just zoom in real quick. And there we go. So I've done 4 single crochets, and now I'm going to grab this small strand of yarn and I'm going to pull on it. Once again, the center loop should tighten. And now you're going to slip stitch into your very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're going to do an increase for round 2. So for round 1, we had a total of 4 single crochets. That means for round 2, we should have a total of 8. So you're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. There's 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once you have your 8 stitches, you're going to slip stitch into your very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're on to round 3. For round 3, we're going to start off by doing 1 regular single crochet and then an increase. So the repeat for round 3 is to do 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around. At the end, you should have a total of 12 stitches. Once you're done with round 3, you're going to slip stitch into your very first stitch and chain 1. And now for rounds 4 and 5, we're just going to do single crochets in each stitch. So single crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 2 rounds, and I'll meet you when I'm done. I'm here at the end of round 5, which is my last round, and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're going to cut a long strand of yarn, I'd say about 12 inches, and pull it through. And now what you want to do is you want to make another ear, so you can rewind the video and make your second ear, and I will meet you when you're done. So I've made my 2 ears, and now we're going to move on. So now we're going to be working on the face. So you're going to want to grab one part of your face. Remember that we made 2, and we're just going to be using one of them for the face, and you're going to want to grab your darning needle along with your black yarn, and we're going to start sewing on the face. So the first thing you're going to do is we're going to make the nose. The nose is going to be exactly in the middle, so where our first round is. So what you want to do, we are going to be making a triangle shaped nose, so we're going to go through one of the side stitches. Let me bring it closer, and we're going to bring it through. Make sure you're bringing your darning needle through from the inner part through the outer part, like so. And then we're going to go through the bottom stitches and bring it through. And then we're going to go back through the stitch that's parallel from the very first stitch that we went through, and bring it through. Then we're going to go back through our second stitch, because again we are making a triangle. Then we're going to go back through our very first one, and then bring it through our last. And now we're just going to fill this in. So you can continue sewing through the corners like so until it's completely filled, but basically you're just going to bring your needle back and forth through each of the stitches like so, and I'm going to do it with you on camera. So bring it through, bring it through, and then if you keep sewing and you have that little white spot in the middle like I do, you're going to want to go through the middle. So you're going to want to go through the middle like so. Find the stitch that's right underneath the center and bring it through. Then bring it through the bottom. Also, you can add your nose however you'd like. If this is a little difficult, which it might be because I'm not the best at explaining sewing, you can sew on the nose however you'd like, but this is just how I do it. Also, you can sew like a circle and sew that circle on if that's easier for you, but this is just how I do it. Once you're okay with the nose, you can just snip off a small strand of yarn and tie the 2 strands together. And then snip them off. And now we're going to be working on the little smile. So the first thing you want to do is you want to grab your black yarn again and go through the bottom part of the nose. So we have this little triangle, right? We're going to go through the stitch right there because that is the bottom part of the nose. Make sure you bring your darning needle through from the inside. So we've brought it through. And now we're going to figure out where the bottom part of our smile is going to be. So our smile is just going to be like this little triangle or this little V shape. So we're going to figure out where the tip of the V is going to be. So mine is going to be around right here. So you're just going to bring it through, which is 3 stitches down from the nose, and I'm just going to bring it through like so. And now I'm going to bring it back up through the tip, and then I'm going to bring it back down through the bottom. And now we're going to do the smile. So we're going to find out where our smile is going to end. Mine's going to be about right over here, and I'm going to bring it through. Then I'm going to bring it back through the bottom of the mouth. And then I'm going to find the other end of my smile, and I'm going to just bring it through the bottom. And there it is. And now I'm just going to go through it one more time so it looks a little thicker. That's just my personal preference, but you can do whatever you want. There we go. Once that's done, you're just going to snip off the yarn and tie the strands together. Now that that part of the face is done, we're going to start working on the eyes. So you're going to want to grab your black yarn again, and we are going to make a adjustable loop once more. And chain 1. And now we're going to do 6 single crochets into the stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now you're going to grab this small strand of yarn and pull on it. So the middle loop closes, and now you're going to slip stitch into your very first stitch and chain 1. And now we're on to round 2. For round 2, we're going to increase in each and every stitch. So at the end of the round, you should have a total of 12. Once you're done with that, you're going to slip stitch into your very first stitch and chain 1. And now you're going to cut a long strand of yarn, I'd say about 12 inches, and pull it through. There is one part of your eye, and now you're going to rewind the video to make another one, and I'll meet you when you have your second piece. So now that we have both of our eyes, we have this little strand of yarn that's there, so you want to pull on it, and now you want to weave it in. So you can either use your hook to weave it in, or you can use your darning needle, but we're going to do this right now because once we sew the eyes onto our bear, we don't want these extra pieces of yarn to get in the way. So go ahead and sew these in right now, and I will meet you when I'm done. Also, you can do the same things with your ears. We have this little strand of yarn on the inside, but you don't need to sew this one in. You can just tuck it in, but if you want to sew it in, you can. Anyway, we're going to sew it in, and I'll meet you when I'm done. Once you have it all sewn in, we're now going to sew these eyes onto our panda. So this is how it's going to look like, and we are going to add little V's on the black circles so we can see where the eyes are, but this is basically how it's going to look like. So we're going to grab our long strand of yarn that's connected to our eye and our darning needle, and we're going to attach it. Once you've attached it, you're going to place your eyes wherever you want the eye to be on the panda, and then we're going to sew it on. So how we're going to sew it on is we are going to sew each and every stitch that's on the eye, which is 12, onto the panda. So just weave it in like so, back and forth through each and every stitch. And I will meet you when I'm done. Once you're done stitching your eye on, you're just going to knot it in place and snip off the yarn. And that is how your eye should look like. And now I'm going to show you how to do the V in the middle. So grab your darning needle and your white yarn, and now we're going to start sewing. So you can sew your eye however you want, but this is just how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to insert it through one of the stitches on the side, if I can bring my darning needle through, and I'm going to pull through, go through one of the stitches at the bottom, and I'm basically just making a V. And go through one of the stitches over there, bring it back through the front, and I'm just going to go over it a couple of times so it's more visible, and I'll meet you when I'm done. Once you're done, you're just going to tie a knot in the back, and then you are going to snip off a small strand of yarn, and now you're going to do the exact same thing with the other eye. And this is how the panda face ended up looking, and now we're going to attach the other part of the panda face onto this. So we're basically going to be sewing all of the stitches together. Each of these little panels should have the exact same number of stitches, so we're just going to stitch these together. So we're going to grab our white yarn and our darning needle, and we're going to put both panels together, and we're going to insert the darning needle through one of the stitches on both sides and pull it through. And one thing you can do with the end of the yarn right here, you can make a slip knot, and then you can bring your darning needle through the slip knot and pull it through and tight so it fastens off properly and you don't have to worry about it undoing itself. And now what you want to do is you want to find each and every individual stitch and stitch them together. Again, there should be an even number of stitches on both sides so you don't have to worry. And now you're just going to sew everything back and forth all the way around. And I'm going to meet you when I'm done, but don't sew it all the way to the end because we will need a little hole to add our stuffing. So sew it all the way around except leave a little inch of space unsewn so we can stuff it. And I will meet you once I'm at that point. I am almost done sewing it together, and now I'm just going to stuff it in with some extra pieces of scrap yarn that I have or old pieces of fabric, and I will meet you once I'm done stuffing. So I've just finished stuffing, and I did sew the rest of it. So what you want to do is you want to finish sewing and then fasten off. And the stuffing that I used sort of left a pink mark because I used pink fabric. It left a little stain here, but that'll go away after I wash it, so just so you know. Anyway, finish sewing and then knot it in place and then snip off this extra piece of yarn. If you are afraid that it's going to undo itself, you can take your darning needle and with your yarn still attached, you can bring it through the back and through one of the stitches like that, and then you can snip it off. And now we're going to sew on our ears. So I've attached my darning needle with my ear piece, and what you want to do is you want to figure out where you want your ear to be, and mine is going to be right next to the eye on the sewn area where we sewed both of our white panels together. So I'm going to place it right there or wherever you want your ear to be, and I'm just going to place one stitch through just so I can hold my ears in place, and then I'm just going to sew back and forth until I have it sewn on to my panda. So continue sewing back and forth until you're done, and I will meet you when I'm done. Once you have your ear sewn on, you're going to do the same thing that we did with the other sewing part, which is you're going to bring it through the back part of your panda, through one of the stitches, and just pull the yarn through. And once you have it through, you're just going to snip the piece of yarn off, and now I'm going to attach my other ear. Once you have your ears sewn on, this is how it should look like. I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and if you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye!